In the last video, we introduced subqueries using a few simple examples. First, we listed all films with a rental rate greater than the average rental rate in our inventory. Then, we found all customers who rented films between two dates. Now suppose we want to find the most recent film rented by each customer. I've already got a query prepared that gets us part of the way there. We start off with customer interjoined to rental, inventory interjoined to rental, and then film interjoined to inventory. And you can see in our select clause, we have the latest rental date calculated within our max function. This query works fine, but it doesn't give us the result we want. It returns all rentals for all customers. So almost 16,000 rows total, because there is nothing that is filtering the rental table that says, give me only the most recent rental for each customer. I've got another query staged which allows us to get the count of distinct customers in our database who have rented from our DVD rental business. The distinct function within the count function allows us to get that distinct count of customer IDs interjoined on the rental table. So we know we have 599 customers who've rented from our business, and we need to get the results from our first query down to just one row per customer. In order to do this, we need a way to create a subset of the rental table that returns only the latest rental for each customer. Then we can filter on that subset. To demonstrate one method, let's add a where clause to our query. And we'll write where rental.rentalDate equals open parenthesis. Then begin writing select max open parenthesis r1.rentalDate close parenthesis from rental aliased as r1. Then, in the where clause of the inner query, we'll write where r1.customer ID equals rental.customer ID. On its own, the subquery appears to only return a max rental date, but by linking it back to our rental table via the customer ID, we create a relationship from the max rental date to the customer, so this subquery finds the max rental date for each customer. Part of the trick here is that you need to alias the rental table in your inner query so that you don't confuse the database with an ambiguous reference. By using an alias, you can specify in your query that the where clause of the inner query is from the inner rental table to the outer rental table. If we run this query, our result set looks much better. However, it's still not quite right. Notice how we have 623 rows in our results, but remember earlier that I said we should have 599 rows. If we look closely at the results, we can see that there are some customers with duplicate rows, like Helen Harris, who rented 2 films during her most recent rental. So, by using our subquery, we accomplished what we set out to do. Sort of. If we want to get this result set down to one row per customer, we need to do a little more work. So we're going to use a SQL function that I really enjoy called stringag. Stringag is similar to our concat function, except instead of concatenating values across multiple columns, stringag lets us concatenate values across rows, collapsing them all into a single row. As its name implies, stringag is an aggregating function, so you will most often use it with a group by clause. Let's go back to our query to demonstrate how it works. First, let's remove the film title from our group by clause. Then, let's go to the select clause and remove the film title. We'll write string_ag open parenthesis film.title, then comma. Then, inside of 2 tick marks, we're going to put a semicolon followed by a space. Then, after the second tick mark, we will write order by film.title. Finally, we will alias this as films rented. Before we run this query, let me explain what this is doing. Stringag has 2 arguments and an optional order by clause. The first argument is the column or expression that you wish to concatenate together. In this case, for those customers who rented multiple films during their most recent rental, we want to combine the film titles. The second argument is the separator. is the character you want to use to separate multiple film titles. In this case, I chose a semicolon followed by a space. The order by clause within string_ag comes after the separator argument, and as I mentioned a moment ago, it's optional. But let's suppose that we want to list the films alphabetically. We can use this part of the string_ag function to specify that. Now, let's run the query again and see the result. Excellent. We get 599 rows in our result set, and customer Helen Harris is no longer being duplicated. If we look at the films rented column, we see that the 2 films she rented on that date have been successfully combined into one row, separated by a semicolon and a space, and sorted alphabetically. This is exactly the result that we want. Subqueries can be kind of complicated, so I won't fault you for not understanding them yet. But don't worry, we'll have more exercises throughout this course that deal with subqueries.